came out recently and said that he would be open to having a Republican as his running mate on the ticket. So basically, he's open to the idea of having a Republican as a vice president, but he did say that he could not think of any Republicans at this point who he would support being on the ticket with him. So just, you know, kind of another example of some very interesting, nonsensical points or positions that Joe Biden, again, is trying to make. So he's saying he would be okay with having a Republican as a running mate. What kind of Democratic voters does he think this would go well with, considering, let's say it's around 80% of Democratic voters support Medicare for all. I don't, for example, can't think of any kind of more national or prominent Republicans that would support that. But again, Joe Biden doesn't support that. Joe Biden is himself very Republican in a lot of ways. He, doesn't support these bold kind of progressive measures that a candidate, let's say, like Bernie Sanders does. So, it makes sense that, Joe Biden, coming from that centrist neoliberal status quo position, would front the idea of possibly having a Republican running mate on the ticket to, unite the two parties in defeat of Donald Trump. But again, also doesn't make sense politically for a number of reasons, and one of those is that, the Republican base greatly loves Donald Trump and what he stands for, and his approval rating among the Republican base is still super high. None of those people are going to go vote for you, Joe Biden, just because you have a Republican, on your ticket with you. Those people would still, overwhelmingly support Donald Trump and, a Pence ticket again over Joe Biden and, whatever, Republican would be his running mate in that example. So again, it's just very strange that he's coming out now and saying that he would have a Republican running mate. It's like, why would you even say yes to that? Why would you even be talking about that right now? But, again, a lot of the things that come out of Joe Biden's mouth don't really make any sense in any type of sane or logical or reasonable world. And I think this is just another, example of him, trying to say that he's, open to working the Republicans, like how open I am. I'm even willing to have a Republican be my vice president in a Biden administration. I think the Republicans will come to their senses once Donald Trump is, lost his reelection and all this, word salad that has no basis, in reality whatsoever. And, again, it just seems like the more Joe Biden opens his mouth, the less, rational sense he makes. And I think it made a lot of sense from his campaign. When they're more early on in the campaign, they were kind of taking the approach of, running a campaign of the least amount of media exposure as possible. Because, again, the more Joe Biden talks, the more he's interviewed and has to ask has to answer questions, I should say, the worse it usually works for him. So I think, if the Biden campaign was smart, they would go back to that strategy as much as possible and just try to, lead from the front and not engage with the electorate or with the media, to the extent that's, possible, as much as possible. Because, there was even just the other day, he was at a campaign event, I believe, in New Hampshire, and there were some people interrupting that event there. There was at least a couple of them. One of them was calling him like a pervert for touching, little kids at these campaign events and other stuff around that. And then somebody else was calling him something about quid pro quo, and I'm not sure what exactly that was in reference to. And then he was And then there was other people at the event telling those people to shut up, and Biden was like, "No, let them talk. They're idiots," or something. So, I, again, he's name calling potential voters at campaign events, calling people idiots, and then saying he would invite, he'd be okay with having a Republican as his vice president in a Biden presidency. So it's like, what are you doing, Joe? Like, I mean, I think it's good overall for, candidates like a Bernie Sanders. The more Biden opens up and spouts off at the hip about whatever nonsense is on his mind at that particular moment, I think that's good overall. But where are the managers of Biden's campaign, his political advisors, his strategists, the strategery, as George Bush would say? Where's the strategery around this? They should be telling Joe, stop talking, shut your mouth. The more you talk, the worse you're doing. Go take a nap in the no malarkey bus or whatever it's called. So very interesting and not surprising. But yeah, Joe Biden came out and said he would be okay with a Republican as his vice president. Not shocking, not really surprising, but it's like, wow, what is he going to say next? Please share your thoughts about Joe Biden saying he'd be okay with having a Republican be his vice president in the comment sections down below this video. Below. Peace. Much love. Bernie.